All right, man. So this
Kyle!
hello, Dave. It's been a while since we've done this.
Kyle, it's been too long, my friend. It has been too long.
Dave, I think it was like I was in a whole other house when we last did a podcast together. So it's definitely been a minute.
It's been a minute. I remember we were talking last time we did a podcast, we were in the Aaron Rodgers era.
That's true. It's a whole new era. And unfortunately for this first podcast that we're going to do, we can't fill in all those gaps between now, Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. So
Hey,
I guess,
it's all about love right now. That's all about love.
yeah, for sure. So Uh, just speaking to the one person that's going to watch this
I'm
the
on.
first time this week. Yeah, probably immediate family. This is the Lambeau. Wow, see, I'm just going to screw it up right away. The Lambeau Leapers podcast, which
The
is a brand new
Lambeau
podcast.
Leapers.
I am
Brought to you.
Kyle. That
And
is
I'm
Dave.
Dave.
Um, Brief history, Dave. Old coworkers, me and you, longtime Packers fans. Why don't you start by giving us and the viewers here, Dave, a good look into what your history of the Green Bay Packers is. Why are you a fan? What drew you to the franchise? What do you love about them? What do you hate about them? Give it to us.
I'm a fan because I was born in Wisconsin. It's pretty straightforward. My father was a Packer fan, and I'm pretty sure he would have beat me if I wasn't. I remember growing up rooting for Brett Favre. You know, I don't care how many welfare checks he steals, he'll still be a god to me. I pray to him every night before I go to bed. But no, it's one of those things. Just green and gold's always been the thing, man. I love the Packers. I love what they do. They're always consistently at the top, and when they're not, it almost feels weird. They're just one of those teams that is just wholesome. They're the only team in the NFL that has a college football feel to it, which I love. You can't go to Chicago and feel that. You can't go to LA and feel that. You can't go to New York and feel that. The only place that genuinely feels like football means everything is Lambeau Field. And I love that. It's just, I'm glad that I ended up on the team that I did. Because ultimately, I probably would have been a fan of whatever my dad rooted for. Thank God it wasn't the Chicago Bears. Thank God it wasn't the New York Jets. Hi, Aaron. Thank God that it wasn't any of the teams that aren't the green and gold. What about you, Kyle?
I don't have the same story. My family's kind of from all over the place, so we kind of picked and choose our teams. I have parents from Pennsylvania. I have parents from Wisconsin here, but the ones that are from Wisconsin here really aren't huge sports fans, or at least not anymore. So it was kind of pick your poison type thing growing up. So a lot of my sports teams are mix and match from Wisconsin to even Chicago. It's just kind of the sports teams that I picked and saw on TV from time to time, and then just like I said, a little bit mix and match. But I remember watching Packers games as a kid. I remember watching the Packers Super Bowl, Brett Favre versus John Elway when I was really young. We lost that Super Bowl, but I remember watching that game and remembering Brett Favre, and everybody just like talked about the guy like he was just like an idol even when he was a little bit younger in the league. So um, definitely grew up on the Packers at least a little bit. But growing up and watching football, and I think like the little things along the way, the school introductions to like trading cards for the Packers, stuff like that really mattered. Stuff of the '90s that no kids will understand nowadays, but collecting every position player and stuff like that, I got to know the Packers really well just because it was local stuff, and then transition into watching them as I got older because it was just a nice routine thing to have on Sundays when I wasn't in church, and so been watching the Packers ever since, man. Definitely my team. I watch I watch a lot of sports. Watch a lot of Wisconsin sports. Their collegiate team frustrates me a lot, but I still try to watch them when I can. The Sunday routines for the Packers games have always been something that have been a nice thing to just sit down, have a cocktail and enjoy the game. So I've always been big into the Packers, big into their franchise, and that's why we're doing this, Dave.
Yeah. Mentioning the collegiate team, how they doing right now, Kyle?
we're going to stay off the topic of the Badgers because I don't want to slander them too hard in this podcast. But if we ever start a Badgers podcast, I'd be more than happy to slander them then.
That's why I chose a long time ago. I picked a side, and I chose Notre Dame since that's the only acceptable team in this area as well. So
You're going to piss off some people with that already. All right, so we've got kind of those introductions out of the way, what we're doing this for, a little bit of history. So let's get to the meat and potatoes, Dave.
yes,
This last week, Packers versus Vikings. We have a Packers team who's coming off of a win in Tennessee where we felt like they played really good. We had some questions in the week. Was Jordan Love going to play? It sounded like maybe it was 75-25 on if that was going to happen or not, kind of going into the week, and then it looked more positive as the week went on. I don't know at what point in the week they actually decided, yes, he's a go, or if that was a game time decision. We both know the outcome. It was one of the rare games that me and you have gotten to sit down and actually watch it together, which was a good time. Buffalo Trace is a hell of a drug, but but we got to actually watch the Vikings and Packers play. Without going into play-by-play detail or anything like that, we both know the outcome of the game. Packers lose by a short margin. Jordan Love goes 32 for 54 passing, almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he does play, obviously. Let's just stop there for a second. How did Jordan Love look to you? Not necessarily, like with the game on the line type stuff, or like just how do you look to you coming out in the first quarter? Would you have thought anything was up with him? Did you feel like this injury is still kind of plaguing him a little bit? What did you see on the field?
Jordan Love to me looked like a guy who sprained his MCL 2 weeks ago. He definitely, you could tell that running out of the pocket, just that ability wasn't there. He's more of a mobile quarterback, not so much like a Jalen Hurts or a Lamar Jackson where they can, run up field. He does have that potential, but that wasn't his game. His game is rolling out, being able to make those passes when it gets a little bit backyard football-ish at times. And the thing was he wasn't able to do that. He stayed in the pocket a lot. That ended up costing the Packers a little bit. But what does make me feel good about that game is him not being mobile, staying in the pocket. He was still able to succeed and do the things he did. Now, for me personally, I feel like there was a little bit of hero ball that was played, and that kind of upset me throughout the game. I feel like coming out of halftime, you're down 28-7. I feel like there were things that they could have done to establish the run still and try to come back. Granted, they didn't know, hindsight's 2020. They didn't know that they were going to clamp down on Minnesota and they were going to score 3 more points throughout the game, but that was what ended up happening, and they just kind of forced too much for my liking. But it does show me that Jordan Love is a very capable passer, and not only will he get better throughout the season as he heals, but you look at a lot of the things that happened during that game, a lot of the things that went negative for the Packers wasn't even on him. You show me Malik Willis dropping the ball 2-3 times. You show me Romeo Doubs with that first interception or the second interception. There were things that was out of Love's hands. So I feel very, very good about Jordan Love himself and what we have as a quarterback. I just feel like the offense needs to gel a little bit more, get it together, and keep on moving forward. What about you?
Well, just to add off of what you said real quick, right? Like we talked even in person about the lack of the running game being implemented in that game. Josh Jacobs 9 carries, 51 yards in that game. 9 touches isn't enough for a guy that we're bringing in to be the workhorse as a running back here. We even at one point, I think me and you thought that they even removed him from the game because he wasn't taking reps. So that was a concern. Probably passing downs. Josh Jacobs always isn't going to be your guy. We've seen Emmanuel Wilson come in and fill that role. But certainly, I would like to see Josh Jacobs take some more touches. I mean, the guy's there for a reason. Let's use him. We're paying him. We have a controversy with Aaron Jones, who was in this game playing against us, over obtaining Josh Jacobs to begin with. Not quite an Aaron Jordan Love situation or anything like that. There's a lot of love for Aaron Jones, I think, still around Green Bay. the franchise, and it seems like that feeling is mutual from Aaron as well. He's posting on social media this past week, thanking all the Green Bay fans and everybody who believed in him from Green Bay. So at least there's something positive out of all this.
It was honestly probably the most wholesome return that a Packer could have ever had. Like I maybe you can think differently, but I can't think of a player who left for another team where they came back to Lambeau and received such a positive reception. Aaron Jones, that just speaks to his character, who he was as a player and just an overall guy. Like he just carries the G. Even when he's in Minnesota, the man carries the G.
Yeah, I was wondering, Dave, maybe you can speculate for us. What was the touchdown celebration was Aaron Jones to have gotten into the end zone during this game?
If he was, I believe that he was planning on doing a Vikings leap. I don't know exactly how he phrased it. It was
I'm
he
not
was
I'm not
planning.
familiar with what a Vikings leap is, Dave. You're gonna have to elaborate for me, I think
Kyle, I
here.
believe that that was him using his athletic traits to hop over the barricade into a fan base of purple jerseys. Now,
Uh
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking right now, just like Dave. That sounds a lot like a Lambeau leap. That sounds like when a player scores a touchdown and jumps into a group of fans of the green and gold variety. But that would not be the case, Kyle, because if you look at the tape, they're wearing purple and white. Purple and white. And that's not green and yellow at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure Sesame Street has taught me that clearly. I I don't know. It didn't feel right, the planned celebration, but look at us, Kyle. We ended up not giving up a rushing touchdown to Aaron Jones or receiving. So we didn't have to see that disaster against Christ.
in the end, yes, no Viking leap was conducted. Thank you for elaborating on that. Um, just to kind of go back for a second, we were talking about the game versus the Vikings. You kind of shared your thoughts there. I think the Packers defense looked a little bit lethargic coming out on the field. I thought that we let them drive right down immediately. And it wasn't even really Justin Jefferson that was the problem on that initial drive. It was kind of us in the passing game, inability to pressure Darnold. I think that we had even a missed opportunity for an interception on that first drive.
Isaiah
And,
McDuffie.
what's that?
Isaiah McDuffie dropping that pass.
Yeah. So, I mean, like plenty of mistakes, mental mistakes, stuff like that, are just going to be things that teams encounter, I think, every single week that they hit the field in the NFL. You're not going to catch every interception. You're not going to, receivers aren't going to catch every pass that hits their hands. They should, yes, ideally, but is it going to happen every single time? No, it's not. Um, just unfortunately, like it's the NFL. So the teams that do it really well and do it at a higher percentage are going to be the ones that are more successful and end up being ranked higher at the end of the year and, push themselves into the playoffs, things of that nature. Um, so let's stay on this defensive note for a second. We're not seeing a whole lot, Dave, from the Tennessee game to the Minnesota game. We weren't seeing a ton of defensive pressures, in this game, and there was this, like a strip sack that happened in the second half. We recovered that fumble. It was a big kind of turning point for us to get that ball back. But it doesn't look like we're getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback versus Minnesota. Do you think that's just the scheme was a more of a coverage scheme versus Minnesota,
I
or
mean, if you look at that fumble, if I'm wrong, correct me. Wasn't it Keyshawn Nixon who forced the fumble? So
yeah, I'd have to look back to know for sure. But
the problem is that our guys aren't getting home. And then you look at the Jeff Hafley system, the guys need to be able to have some semblance of pass rush. You have to get pressures. You have to be able to help out your guys, especially in a game like this last week where you have Carrington Valentine and Jair Alexander both out. Your pass rush needs to step up, which they didn't. And when I look at guys who didn't step up, you have your Preston Smith, you have your Lucas Van Ness, you have your Rashawn Gary, who's making, I believe he's the eighth highest pass rusher in the league, and he's just not showing up currently. So there's something there that I believe that they'll be able to recover. I think that Minnesota's got a good offensive line, and they were able to get the screen game going, which really affects just being able to just, pin your ears back and go for the quarterback. So there were things that they were kind of handicapped wise not able to do, but you still have to be able to beat your one-on-ones. I watched a video of Rashawn Gary versus Oliver, the tight end from Minnesota, and he wasn't able to beat the tight end. It's like you gotta win those one-on-ones. You have to be able to take those opportunities when you can, especially when you're being paid that much. I get that you're not a Bosa, you're not Garrett, you're not the top of the top. You're that
But
secondary pass rusher and like tiers, and I'm fine with that. But you have to do better than losing a rep to a tight end when the game's on the line. Come on.
so do you feel then that so like the secondary of the Packers has had, especially well, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here, but because we can talk about Xavier McKinney's success a little bit later, but I just want to tie him in because obviously he's part of this Green Bay secondary. The secondary seems to have had some success early in the season. They're turning in high turnover rates. Do you feel like maybe that's just part of the scheme, and we're just not understanding that maybe we're playing a little bit more coverage here than we are concerned with pass rushing at this point because we do have guys that are threats like Gary that are going to draw double teams, or potentially cause that offensive line to adjust to that rather than, us putting five guys up on the line.
I think the scheme is right. I think that realistically, like you have ball hawks in the backfield that are going to make plays. And they've missed plays too. You look at Isaiah McDuffie dropping that. You look at Quay Walker. What was it, a week ago against the Titans where he dropped a pass? There's been opportunities where there's more even left on the field than what they've gotten, and they're already a top defense when it comes to turnover margin. I think that the scheme's helping them. They're letting guys play the way they play. I think you just have to win your one-on-ones. And maybe that game would have been different if you had a Jair Alexander. Maybe that game would have been different if you would have had a Carrington Valentine, but you didn't have that. So that's where, when you know that you're hurting in one way, you need your big uglies to step up and really win that game for you, which just didn't happen. And that's okay. It's just one game. But when that starts happening later on in the season, you get to the playoffs, it's going to mean a lot different when it's one and done.
There's also a key injury in that game, which was Mr. Wyatt got hurt, which we saw him, kind of walk off the field limping. I don't know his injury status, but we're going to talk injuries a little bit later. So if you do know the status on that, just hold off for now.
Yep.
But so that kind of wraps up our defensive portion, at least at this point. I think kind of to wrap up on the Green Bay Minnesota. I guess like key takeaways for me and looking forward. Is it the end of the world? No. I think that Jordan Love is still nursing this injury to some extent. I think that there's a little bit of a potential. Obviously, he was medically cleared to come back. The guy wants to play football. He got paid. I don't think he wants anybody saying that he got paid this contract and that he's sitting or milking something with the money he's making. So I respect it. I really do. It's better than him, not seeing the field for 4 or 5 more weeks, not getting practice reps, and then having to come back when we really need some key games won. So I appreciated his initiative to at least be back on the field. But if that's at the expense of him being healthy, that's kind of a double-edged sword there. So we'll have to see how he looks this week. I think there could be some judgment and backlash coming for this Green Bay coaching staff. If they look at him again this week and they say, man, his movement's really restricted. Man, he can't throw off his back foot like he usually does. Man, he can't, his accuracy doesn't look good because he didn't take live reps for a little bit, right? Like he's been limited in practice or something like that. That's not being, pushed out there in the mainstream media or something, right? If all those things become a factor, I think that they could look at the coaching staff and they could say, hey, you pushed this guy to come back too fast. Why, when you had a number two, in Malik Willis, that was absolutely blowing it out of the water for coming in on such short-term notice and, being able to get the job done and win games. Now, granted, there's a pretty big difference between the Tennessee Titans, right? And the Minnesota Vikings. We both know that Minnesota is a contender this year to some extent. We'll see how the season, plays out here. But Tennessee is not going to be a contender this year. We know that. regardless of how many jars of mayonnaise Will Levis puts in his coffee, it's not going to matter. The Tennessee Titans are really are really gonna probably struggle this year. That's unfortunate. There's a couple of veterans on that team that do deserve to do really well, but I think overall I'm not panicked about Jordan Love's performance. Like you said, there's a couple key drops and stuff in there. Really, if it's I think as small as it is, Dave, I think that if there was a 4 touchdown 2 interception game, I don't think it gets looked at as harshly as his 3 interceptions. It just looks bad on paper, unfortunately, right? Like it's one of those situations where um, the 3 interceptions doesn't tell what the situation was in each instance. I 100% agree with you that the hero ball thing drive me nuts. We weren't getting home on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's the biggest deal. At the end of the day, without making excuses for injuries, right? Uh, so that the game's over. It's done early in the season, right? Only 4 games in this NFL season have been played. There's a lot of football left here. But let's go on to what is kind of concerning to me with that game. So we'll kind of separate this out. Uh, the Narv Dog, the
Narv Dog,
the
my boy.
the
Look at
biggest.
how they massacred my boy, Kyle.
There's a lot of question marks around this kid right now, and I hate to see it because I felt like his attitude coming into Green Bay was great. He's one of those guys that you love to see come to Green Bay. He's an underdog. He doesn't have the leg that some of these other established kickers in the NFL have, but he does have the talent to succeed in the league. And we've seen it a lot of different times with kickers throughout the years. The kickers get traded around a lot. They get moved around a lot. Guys like to keep kickers fresh. They like to have position battles with kickers, and sometimes guys just don't make the cut unless they're a veteran of the team. They prove themselves. This kid, to me, when he seemed like he was coming to Green Bay, seemed like somebody we're going to hold on to for a longer period of time if he was to go through struggles. And I think that's exactly what the Green Bay Packers are going to do with him. I think that if they wanted to do anything different than that with him, he'd already have been out the door and they would have already signed somebody else from some practice squad somewhere or been relying on somebody else. I think that they have faith that this kid's going to come around. He misses 2 kicks. They said it was super windy in the bowl at Green Bay. So whether that's the truth or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. I could see the flags and the field goal post. It didn't look like it should have, prohibited him from making field goals. However, maybe we give him a pass on one of those. You got to make both of them their game time situation type kicks. Especially the second one, but when you're trying to narrow a lead like that, as big as that was, but I'm not panicked about the kid. I think that it's one of those things where, unfortunately for him, right, like the next couple games are going to be pretty telling. Like if this next game we're missing chip shot field goals, like I think that's time to pull the plug. But I'm okay with them sticking with him, not just releasing him off one bad week or he's missed a kick in every game this season type narrative. It could totally be that he turns it around. But there's a lot of again, I feel bad for the kid. There's so much hype coming in, and now it seems like everybody on social media is beating the kid down. But just you want to share your thoughts on the kicker situation in Green Bay, how we're feeling about everything. I know you're missing Mason Crosby right now. I know it.
Oh, Kyle, quite the opposite. Kyle, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the hit band Iron Maiden?
I have heard of them. Yes.
They have this song. It's called "The Flight of Icarus." It says, "Fly on the wings of an eagle, fly as high as the sun." And that's what Narv Dog did. He flew as high as the sun could go, and he melted his wings. He's falling a little bit, Cal. He's falling. He came in. He looked amazing in that press conference. He said all the right things. He said pressure is a privilege, and now he's got more privilege than he can handle. And it's nothing against Narv Dog. I think that he's a rookie kicker. He didn't spend the offseason with this team. He didn't spend the offseason with your long snapper. He didn't spend it with your holder. And you just have ignorant fans that say, oh, your whole point of this game is get through here. Just kick it right through here. Yeah, if everybody could do that, everybody would do it. Like, I don't know about you. If I could make $1 million a year just to kick a ball through the uprights, I would do it. I can't because I'm not talented and I don't stretch out enough. It's like my hammies would pull, Kyle. And just Narv Dog will eventually settle in. Fans are just, this is a week to week league. Everything just comes off of, oh, we need to get rid of guys now. We need to get rid of guys now. I hate that. I hate the fact that we just, that's a kid's dream. That's his job. He's done this for years. And yeah, everything's not working out right now. Give him a chance. If you remember, Mason Crosby in 2012 missed everything. I don't think the man made a single kick the whole year. And Ted Thompson kept him. Give Narv Dog a chance. He's unique. He says the right things. He still can make kicks. He's made some embarrassing misses, and that's okay because he's a rookie. You got to let him grow. You don't get Ryan Longwell. You don't get Mason Crosby if you cut them in the first season. Every time that you make a miss, you don't cut a kicker. You give him the opportunity. And granted, I think our team is going to do some good things. If it comes to an Anders Carlson opportunity, like at the postseason where he misses, yes, you cut him. You don't even give him that competition the next year. And yes, it would be sad to lose such a great season due to that. But what's your alternatives? Are you going to go with Brandon McManus, who just had, I don't know. You can look into his charges. I'm not going to go into details. And yes, he was cleared of them, but he's still going to be in civil cases. Green Bay stays away from that. Who else are you going to get? Somebody, I hate when fans are just like, oh, we need to move off him. We need to move off him. Who are you going to get?
Well, we have a worst case scenario in this specific instance, right? Which is that Greg Joseph, goes to the Giants and makes what 5 field goals in a week, and people panic and they say, "Well, look at this guy over here. He's doing this right. Like he's this veteran kicker. How could we have cut him and kept this kid?" Which makes me truthfully root for the Narv Dog even more.
Our
In
dog.
fact, Dave, I'm going to make a bold prediction. We're going to reach out to Narv Dog. He doesn't have that many followers on social media. We're going to get him on here before too long. I'm telling you, we're going to do it.
Us with literally, this is our first podcast in a few years. Yep, I'm sure that we're going to get the kicker of the Green Bay Packers on here. Narv Dog,
Absolutely.
love you. If you're watching this, I love you. Whoever says cut you, they're wrong. They're wrong.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool thing, like it might be an obtainable person. It's not as his status is so low that we can reach it. I think that if we pester him enough, we may be able to get a response.
And I will pester you, Narv. Fly on the wings of an eagle, Narv.
Two believers right here, my guy.
I'm
All right.
number 44. I might get a Narv Dog jersey by the end of the year.
So we've aligned. We've aligned on this issue. I like that. We're not giving up on the kid. We want him to stick around in Green Bay and do really well. Hopefully, he turns it around, and there's no executive decisions that need to be made about him going forward. So,
I think this is honestly our most controversial take probably that we've ever had, and I love that it's about a kicker.
Yeah.
We're doing the Lord's work, Kyle.
Well, classically, Dave, in the past, I think that like I've tried to be a little bit more. I wouldn't say even a realist. I would say maybe a little bit more negative about the Packers at times. They can really frustrate me because I can always see where the end is going before they get there. And I want to believe for them so bad sometimes, but we've had a lot of heartbreak in Green Bay over the last decade or so now, and a lot of championships that should have been won. And we're going to allude to all of that. We're just going to stop that right there before I start sobbing in my basement. But it's a tough place to be at times, man. But I think I've come a long way from that, especially with the transition from Rodgers to Love. I think that you have to be a little bit more, optimistic in nature. See the vision for some of the younger guys in the team. See where the franchise is going and what management is trying to do with the team. The positives are that we have a great coach. It seems like we have a great coach who also knows how to bring in other great coaches. They seem to be very good at acquiring new talent. if some of these kids could refrain from getting injuries like Christian Watson, that'd be great.
That
Just
that
not.
one wasn't his fault though. This last week,
No, not. He's there's guys all over the league, man. Every single team that are difficult to keep healthy. I think Watson's been one for us. And it's tough when you have a guy who's supposed to be your wide receiver one that's getting hurt pretty
yeah.
regularly.
How many hamstring injuries though this year? 0 from Christian Watson, 0 from Eric Stokes. Positive sign.
They must have upped the squats in the offseason, Dave. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, they saw what was it? They saw a specialist where they measured the size of their. I believe it was their hamstrings, where they saw a differential in size that one was being used more than the other, which was causing injuries. But that's a little bit too technical for this show. We're not that smart, so
Yeah. No, I'm not that smart at all. I wonder if that's a common issue around the league, though. Interesting, because there are a lot of hamstrings in the NFL.
it'd be
But
interesting to think about it that you're pushing off of your plantar foot, or you're cutting in one direction. Say if you're not going to move back and forth, there's ultimately going to be one leg receiving more work than the other. But again, not that smart. So
yeah. All right. We can't do this podcast, Dave, without recognizing positives with some of the negatives. I think the negative right now is that we have a kicker who's struggling. And I don't think that I wouldn't even go near saying that we have a team that's struggling. I think that we just are, trying to figure out the full dynamic of who this team is, what the identity is this season. And I think we're going to get there over the next couple of games, and you're going to start to see the Packers kind of emerge into who they're going to be for the rest of the year. So I'm encouraged by it. I think a 2-2 start is fine. I have no giant issues with any of the games. We at least turned it around versus Minnesota and didn't just get absolutely blown out of the water. So that's encouraging. But so we have the kicker who's a little bit of a negative right now. But as a positive, we have Xavier McKinney, who has come onto the team and absolutely stunned everybody, I think, by not necessarily, playing well, but mostly just exceeding expectations. I mean, I don't know the stat. I saw it pop up during the game for Xavier. But, I mean, we're talking about 4 interceptions in 4 games. That hasn't been done in a very long time, Dave, for the Green Bay Packers. I think it dates back to the 80s. So,
Kyle, if this man does not receive a sponsorship from Wendy's with a 4-for-4 deal, then their marketing is messing up. Xavier McKinney is lighting up the league right now.
yeah, it's fun to see, man, on the defensive side of the ball. I think, like I said, like we talked about earlier, I think that we have a lot of positive stuff going on in the secondary of this team if they can stay healthy. Unfortunately, some of our guys that come in to support those roles at times are in different packages. Uh, you know, Great guys, athletic guys like Keyshawn Nixon. Uh, you love to see the guy do well when he's hot. Unfortunately, we lose a couple of those playmakers over the last couple of years too. Rasul Douglas is a big piece, still playing really good football in Buffalo right now. So I think that you lose a couple pieces, or you have a couple injuries, especially the key guys like Ja Money, like this last week and probably this week as well. You have to support guys like that, and unfortunately, I think it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to replace those guys in the field, and you can't put another Jair Alexander out there. Um, you can maybe get close through the draft and through acquiring other young talent, but then that requires typically the other talent that you have on the team to go elsewhere, or to restructure contracts or something like that to meet that 53-man roster. So, but let's stay on the topic of McKinney. Obviously, I don't know what happened with that interception this last game. To be honest with you, I thought that was an incomplete pass. Everybody seemed to think it was an incomplete pass. I thought the Packers were robbed on a few, so I don't know if that was like their sympathy, like the ref was watching with an eye patch or something like that in the actual review machine. I don't know what was going on. Gene Steratore, I never would have imagined him, supporting that as a catch either. So I don't know what happened with that interception. I'm just glad he got his fourth and made some Packers history. That's a very cool thing to see. We haven't seen that in a while. It kind of reminds me of, the old secondary play of like a Charles Woodson type individual. Two different positions, obviously, but I like the way he flows to the ball. Um, he seems to be consistently in the right place when you need him to be, which is what a safety should do. And it's very positive to see the Packers secondary making plays.
I think that one thing you can say about Xavier McKinney is he bought into the system right away. The Packers ended up giving him a partner in crime with Javon Bullard, and they've just played amazing complementary football compared to where we were last year with, say, a Jonathan Owens, an Anthony Johnson Jr., Rudy Ford. Like it's leaps and bounds above what we had last year. I mean, I can't even break it down technically what they're doing that's so much better, but on the back end, they are so much better. And like I said, 4 for 4 special, Xavier McKinney. Come and get it. You want to
Yeah,
throw on us? You got to go through him.
yeah, I think he's got a good chance again this week, man. And making it 5 for 5, if I'm being honest, but uh, probably ties into our predictions here in a little bit. So let's talk injuries, Dave, because it's we kind of just dipped into it a little bit, our toes in the water with injuries. But now I know typically, you're probably more up to speed with the injuries coming into, the next week. I have some obvious ones that I listed. Obviously, we know, it sounds like Jair is going to be out, another week here, most likely battling some kind of hamstring injury. It sounds like, or something like that.
I believe it was his groin.
Was it his groin?
I believe that he had a groin injury. His
Oh,
jet sense ended up getting injured.
I yeah, I thought they were saying that he was milking some kind of leg injury, but I could be completely wrong on that. I trust your judgment, but it sounds like Christian Watson obviously isn't going on IR, so positive news. Still probably won't play this week, um, but that's positive news. He looked like he was pretty hurt in the moment, so glad.
Honestly, if you ask me, who's the most important injury? Which yes, you didn't ask me. Thank you for by the way for that. But the most important injury of this defense is Devontae Wyatt. Like, if you look at what he was able to do, I don't think Kenny Clark is the best defensive lineman this year so far.
Dave, can you see what that says on the sheet? It says Wyatt with a big circle.
Gal, I might have jumped the gun.
Now you jumped the gun a little bit on there, Dave. All right, because I'm going to list all these injuries. All right, and
Kyle,
let's let me get them out of the way, Dave. All right,
here's the
because
thing. I obviously you can see that I'm ugly looking at this camera, but I'm a big ugly too. I'm 6'6". I'm 300 plus pounds. I care about the big uglies. And when they're not mentioned enough, we're already almost 40 minutes in this podcast. We haven't talked about a man that weighs more than 300 pounds yet, Kyle. And that was starting to get to me. I was itching. That's my bad. That's on me. That is on me.
all
I'm
right,
sorry.
there's another big ugly that I'd like to mention now that you're saying that I'm neglecting you guys, which is that Jordan Morgan still obviously battling injury as well. So, and then I'll leave the Wyatt dissertation to you at this point, but Um, those are the four key injuries I see right now. I don't know if you have more on the list that I'm not thinking about, but that's kind of where we're at for key injuries or for starters, or for guys that do fill in and play some ball for other people on snap counts or whatever. So I don't know the status of Wyatt. Do you know his status at this point? What he's dealing with?
He hasn't been thrown an IR yet, but personally, I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Just the way he was limping. The thing is with those bigger guys, like it's really really hard for them to come back from lower bodies. It doesn't just happen immediately. I don't expect him to play for the Rams. I don't expect him to play for the next few weeks. To be honest with you, I don't see the Cardinals. I don't see against the Texans. I think he might be an IR candidate where they're going to give him the week to see how he goes and to see if it is a long term. But I feel like it's going to be a long term. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like he's not going to be in our defense anytime soon. But but I can throw some type of a positive twist on this. You have Jonathan Ford about to be activated off of IR. A lot of people don't remember Jonathan Ford. He was the seventh round out of Miami. What was it, 3 years ago now? Big ugly. He's the definition of big ugly. I believe he's our biggest player that we have on the team. So him being able to come back, at least you have another body available. Is he Devontae Wyatt? No. Especially Devontae Wyatt's having a career year. It's sad to see it for the guy because he is as good as he is, but at least there's something with Jonathan Ford coming back.
Yeah, I mean Wyatt's still younger. I'm not too worried about him. I mean, he seems committed to the cause, like you said. The buy-in on the team and the organization and what they're trying to do at a younger age seems like it's completely bought in by a lot of the guys. So I'm not worried about it. He's got a ton of potential to be great. And the thing that I've learned about the NFL really fast, man, is like, there's guys that go down with some kind of nitpicky injuries and stuff like that from time to time. And granted, like I'm not out there playing in the NFL. There's plenty of stuff that probably looks like nothing on TV or, even in person when we go and watch a game that is truly something that, we just don't understand what the guy's dealing with, or it's aggravating an already existing injury that wasn't on an injury report, yada, yada. The list goes on and on.
Mm.
But the thing that I learned about linemen really fast, man, is like usually when linemen, D or O line guys go out, it's pretty serious. They don't usually like try to milk injuries or go off the field for anything that would be not considered significant. So, like you said, like I think that this is probably something that's gonna give him some trouble for a little bit, and hopefully he's able to get back quickly and he's actually healthy when he does come back. That's the biggest thing. Can you come back is big, but can you come back and be ready to play good football, potentially even like championship football? And the answer to that is no. Then we shouldn't have these guys back on the field. So.
And ultimately, it's on the Packers to be able to scheme around not having Devontae Wyatt. You still have to win games now without him. Kenny Clark needs to step up. Other guys in the system need to step up, whether it's Carl Brooks or whether it's a Kobe Wooden, who's been inactive for most of the games, or say Jonathan Ford coming back, or TJ Slayton. There's guys that need to step up now because you need to win these games coming up. If Devontae Wyatt can come back later, play championship football, love it, want to see it. But other guys need to start playing better.
Yeah, 100%. So let me ask you a question based off that alone. Like what and we talked about guys getting home on the D line. We've talked about some of the good and even spotty secondary play against Minnesota. If you had to come up with one thing, Dave, to make an improvement for the Rams game, obviously it's a completely different dynamic, maybe a different game plan than the Packers were planning because you don't have a Cooper Kupp to play against. You don't have a Puka Nacua to have to deal with. But you do have a Matthew Stafford to play against. And, Matthew Stafford is a gamer, future Hall of Famer. The man, I have a lot of love for him, even though he was a Detroit Lion for a long time. Watching that man knit and grit, it kind of reminds me of Brett Favre back in the day, how he would, just take hits, still wanted to be in the game, still wanted to play the game, just had a love for it.
Yeah,
Uh,
he has love for the game, and you respect that.
yeah, absolutely. So, like, if you had to say, hey, listen, let's tweak this defense this week and let's do this, what would you say that the Packers defense has to do to be successful?
This week, I would argue that you need to get more interior pass rush as well, because you have a lot of the Rams offensive line that's beat up. And say maybe that's Lucas Van Ness playing more and playing inside, doing those stunts. There's different lineups that you could have to approach matchups to get more pressure on the ball. But that's just one thing. Now there's also season long. I have something up my pocket, but I think we'll address that a little bit later. But for right now, I think that being able to move around your guys a little bit more, see some pressures from some different ends. You have Lucas Van Ness able to move around. You have Kingsley Anibari able to move around. Get more creative. And honestly, if Kenny Clark isn't making Kenny Clark plays, rotate him out a little bit. Obviously, there's something wrong here. Maybe he needs some type of fire behind him. Maybe he needs some type of, I'm not saying bench the guy, but if you start reducing snaps, and I know you're going to be like, well, who do you give it to? Who do you give it to? I'll tell you what, you have players set, like a TJ Slayton, who also isn't playing great, but say you start throwing Carl Brooks in there a little bit more, a little bit hungrier, a little bit, hasn't gotten paid ever. Or Kenny Clark's received, I believe, his third payday now. He's starting to regress a little bit. Get something, get something going for Kenny. Light a fire underneath him now, where you're going to upset him now, but down the road, it'll maybe pay off for you, or maybe it's just there might not be anything. But I believe that you have to start rotating guys interior wise a little bit more, get a little bit more interior pass rush, help out your guys.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? Like we got to get home. I agree with you 100% on that. The secondaries play, right? Like in the NFL, especially when you have the talent that any given wide receiver has on any given Sunday. Um, you're talking about if we allow a quarterback to have too much time, they're going to find somebody downfield. It's not optional, right? They're going to find the receiver, and they're going to hit them wherever they're at, right? Like the scramble drills are too good in the NFL to not have an open receiver somewhere on the field if we give them 5 or 10 seconds to throw the football. Um, so yeah, I'm with you 100%, Dave. But this is actually a trick question, Dave. I had some little something prepared for you. The man that you really want, Dave, is this man right here, who also does a podcast every week. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, or which one that he actually does. But
I don't think it's a very popular podcast that he's on. So
no, I wouldn't say that it is. But
Anthony Jamal Hawk.
um, he's an absolute menace. But that's just a little joke that I threw in there for you. Not quite a dad joke, but something that I thought that you.
I also have an AJ Hawk autograph too. It's over at my parents still, but that is funny you brought that up.
I'll tell you, we'd take AJ if he wanted to come back. I think we'd take him.
No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't at all. I mean, the man was great, but like he was the definition of he's able to make a tackle when a guy's run past the line 5 yards. Yeah, if you're
Yeah,
getting 5 yards every single play, that's great. Yeah, you're making the tackle. Gun ho,
it's all in
AJ,
the hair.
leading tackle.
It's all in the hair. All the great Packers linebackers of all time have had really long, obnoxious hair.
I'll have to do an episode of just deep takes about players, but we don't
I'm
have
gonna be
time today, Kyle.
I'm gonna be disappointed if in like 3 years Edgerrin Cooper does not have hair down to at least the small of his back.
Just blonde, stunning hair, just like Clay Matthews and AJ Hawk. Yeah,
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
not?
So the last thing that I have on here, Dave, is predictions for this week. But I don't know if you want to get to some stuff before I hit that or not.
Uh, I say let's go to predictions right now, and then maybe if somebody is watching this, then we can surprise them later with a different episode about something we could do potentially before the trade deadline.
Yes, we've agreed all night on a lot of things, Dave. This is not going to be one of the things that we're going to agree on.
It's a spicy
But,
take. It's very, very caliente, as you will, Kyle.
I'm more than willing to discuss it with you. All right. So this is a quick portion anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk prediction versus the LA Rams. All right. We have the obvious, which we just talked about, right? Which is that they're missing two of their key wide receivers. They have a star, absolute star, in Kyron Williams. At least for this season, has emerged as a star for the LA Rams. I can't say that he's an absolute stud yet without some proven time, I think. But
I mean, you can't say that because he's on your fantasy team. So.
I can't. He is on my fantasy team, yes. But overall, yeah, does the kid need time to maybe cook in LA a little bit longer before we say he's an established guy? He's just an absolute stud, maybe. But he's playing very well as far as running back play goes in the NFL this year. He seems to be a real threat out of the passing game for the Rams. So I see that the Packers game planning for more of a run, maybe even screen type defense, where the receiver talent isn't necessarily what they just dealt with in Minnesota. So I think there's a little bit easier of a game plan for the Packers on defense. The Rams defense hasn't been great this year. They don't have an Aaron Donald to plague us all game long, which is great for us and for Jordan Love, whose hamstrings and MCLs. We'll certainly appreciate that. Um, Dave, I'm going to go and predict this week for the Packers. I think we'll have a good bounce back week. I think last week was a good motivator for the Green Bay Packers to get back on the right track. I think the defense will figure it out, but you're not going to keep Matthew Stafford off the board forever. I think it's a 31-24 Packers victory in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good take. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but for the sake of show, I will. I think that I think that ultimately, where I was talking earlier about replacing Kenny Clark, I don't see him doing enough in the run game to really bounce back enough to help us. I think Kyron Williams actually eats a little bit. I don't see anything on our defensive scheme yet that's going to stop the run. I think Kyron gets at least 100 yards. I think that he gets at least a touchdown. I think that he has a pretty good week for you in your fantasy team. I think that ultimately it's going to be hard to pass the ball against the Packers, and that's even if Jair isn't back. That's even if Carrington Valentine isn't back. They just don't have the wide receivers. I believe they have Tyler Higbee is their tight end too, so I mean he might get something over the middle. So there's opportunities for them to move the ball. I think that ends up being closer than we ultimately think it is, but I do think Green Bay still pulls away with the victory. I think that we kind of almost got fooled by the way that Jordan Love was able to throw the ball last week and in that fourth quarter getting 3 touchdowns. I think we're going to expect higher points than it really will be. I still have the Packers winning, but I'm going to go 17-10 Green Bay.
Wow. You're going low scoring.
I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be so happy because I would love to see Aaron Rodgers or Aaron Rodgers there, Jordan Love go out there and throw for 4 touchdowns. And sorry, it's a force of habit. It's a hard one to break. Grew up with the
It
man.
is. my my friend's still recovering. Everybody, he's still processing.
It's been a lot of trauma. I know it's been a year, but I had 15 years with the man, 16 years with the man. But
Interesting take. So let me ask you this. So you think Kyron's going over 100? Let me ask. So like even Aaron Jones last week when the Vikings were up huge didn't go up over 100. What changes from the Vikings game last week which I would consider probably to be the better offense in terms of offensive line protection, potential run blocking. What sets you over the edge for the Rams versus the Vikings?
I think that there was a method of like you kind of could predict what was happening with the Vikings in that second half. You knew that Aaron Jones, when you were at the goal line, was going to get the ball. They wanted to for the team to get him a touchdown when he was towards anywhere in the red zone. You almost could predict and just be like, yeah, Aaron Jones is definitely in the ball. Aaron Jones is definitely in the ball. Kyron Williams, you don't know that for sure. So I think that method of unpredictability is going to leave Green Bay guessing a little bit more, where you didn't have that last week.
Listen, Dave, Aaron Jones doing the
Gotta check himself out of the game.
It hurt something deep last week, man. I used to really enjoy doing that with Aaron Jones from my living room couch, where he was doing it live in front of 70,000 fans. I would do it in front of my wife and children, which is really just just horribly embarrassing as it is. But it's even worse to watch him do it in Vikings colors. So I'm glad I didn't have to see an Aaron Jones unique celebration that would have been trademarked in Lambeau Field. I'm certainly glad that I did not have to watch him and Jettas do some kind of gritty, if you will, in the end zone because my daughter would have and thought it was very, very cool.
Well, lucky for us, we don't play the Vikings again until I believe it's week 17. So Aaron Jones is probably going to be hurt by then. Oh, hot take.
You can't wish that on my boy, man. He gave love to Green Bay.
I don't wish it. I'm just predicting it, brother. Just predicting it.
So let's hit this last topic, Dave. This is probably all we have time for tonight. You're saying trade block. You mentioned the word. I already know where you're going with this because we talked a little bit about it before the show. Just lay into it for us. Lay it all out there. Disappoint me. We have to disagree on something big tonight. This is going to be it. Go for it.
Kyle, it's
I'm
a
gonna
few
cross
weeks
my
till
arms, Dave. I'm already upset with you.
the trade deadline, and I will make this pitch if I'm the Green Bay Packers. The one thing that's hurt us is the defensive line and the pass rush. Right now, Green Bay is at a 32nd out of 32 teams for pass rush win efficiency. Green Bay's not winning pressures. They're not beating their guys, whether it's Rashawn Gary, Van Ness, Enigbari, Preston Smith. You could blame them on a lot of different reasons, which we have spoke about in this show. But right now they're not getting there. And I'm saying if this was to continue, you might want to bring another body into the rotation. Now, Kyle, who are we going to bring during the trade deadline? And who are the teams that would possibly trade a top or at least experienced veteran pass rusher at the trade deadline? Well, who's one of the worst teams in football right now? Kyle, the Cleveland Browns are one of the worst teams in football. And I know what you're thinking. There's no possible way that they're going to get Myles Garrett. They couldn't give up anything to get Myles Garrett, and that's not who I'm talking about, Kyle. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but a Mr. Zadarius Smith got traded to Cleveland a few years back, where last year he got 5.5 sacks. This year already has 2. Bring Z home. Zadarius needs to come home. I know we had issues in the past. We had a fight. But I'll tell you what, Kyle, in any romantic comedy, they have a fight. In Pretty Woman, Julia Andrews ran away for a span before she came back. In the Bible, it talked about the son who left his home to come back to the farm, where he was welcomed with fine robes and welcomed by his father, said, "Get my son something to drink. Get my son something to eat." That's what we need to do with Zadarius, because Zadarius will be another amazing body for our pass rush. And don't forget the 13.5 sacks. Don't forget the 12.5 sacks. Ye fair weather fans, bring my boy home, Kyle. Bring him home. I know, oh, 6th round conditional pick, is that worth it? Yes. Yes. 6th round conditional? Are you kidding me? Bring my boy home. I miss you, Z.
All right, Dave. You see this on the hat? You can see that clearly, right?
I believe that's a G, Kyle.
It is. It's a representation and logo for the Green Bay Packers, Dave, a team which we both and the very first thing in this podcast say that we love very much. We followed for a very long time. Dave, this organization on this hat right here
Mhm.
hates doing the exact thing that you are talking about right now at this very moment in time. They hate it with a passion. They hate it more than seeing Aaron Jones in purple. They hate it more than seeing Aaron Rodgers in green and saying things like Jets, 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 spelling it out like elementary school kids. They hate it, Dave. They hate doing what you're talking about. My problem is not the addition to the position. My problem, which is my usual issue, is getting my hopes up that something will happen and then watching it not happen. Um, I think that's the biggest stipulation. And then, like, yeah, obviously there's some kind of checks and balances with contract issues. What do we trade? What are we assuming? What are they giving up? Is it worth it in the end if he doesn't produce? All questions which the organization will have to figure out. Thankfully, not Kyle and Dave, but things that the organization will have to figure out along the way. I don't hate it. Uh, let's just address. I didn't even plan on talking about this. And I don't know if you said your piece on Z. That was a legendary rant, regardless. The fact that you threw Pretty Woman in there and the Bible is nuts. But uh, but there's not a chance that Devontae Adams is coming back to Green Bay. nor do we need him. I was having this discussion with somebody today, but I think it's interesting because it seems to be hot talk around the NFL all over every network right now. Where is he going? What is he doing? I'm gonna not debate over whether he's coming to Green Bay or not because I know it's impossible or extremely unlikely. To me there's a 0.000000001 chance that he comes to Green Bay. There's no reason to bring him back. I don't think that he wants to be back. He had a falling out with people that are still in the Packers organization. Absolutely no reason to bring Davante Adams back. There's a lot of receiver talent on this team, and if they really wanted to, they would just go to the draft again at the end of this year to grab somebody else, which they've been really successful at. So instead of focus on if he's coming to the Green Bay Packers or not, again, spoiler alert, he's not. But let's talk about which team is a prediction for where he will end up, Dave. Just as a fun end of the podcast, I will go ahead and just give mine right off the bat. Well, actually, I'll give you two. All right, I'll give you two predictions. You can do the same if you wish. The first is kind of a comical one because I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs always never cease to piss me off with in-game calls, which range all over the board to acquiring of talent. Part of that is because they're the new Patriots. They're a winning franchise. No one wants to see them continue to win, continue to be good when when we're fans of other teams. And we especially don't want to see, more still shots of Taylor Swift in a booth somewhere. So God help us all if Davante goes there. Maybe that'll take away a little screen time from Taylor, so it could be a positive thing for the NFL
Don't
community.
you take away my screen time from Taylor. I'm okay with it. You don't talk
Um,
about my queen like that, Kyle.
the Kansas City move makes a lot of sense to me. They don't have a defined wide receiver. Well, they did have a defined wide receiver one who's sitting on felony charges. So that situation was kind of up in the air to begin with. Not not to be heartless about it, but I mean it's the reality of the situation, right? We don't really realistically know if that's going to be something where um, he played the rest of the season or not. The NFL has kind of changed the rules and stuff around. I think before the old NFL, he would have been out, sitting out the season, suspended until they figured that out. It would have been a year, maybe 2 years before you would have seen him back in the league, depending on the disposition for the case. Now, it's not that, but they just lost him to a pretty significant knee injury. They don't have a defined wide receiver one. They have a Juju Smith-Schuster who's sitting over there, but he's not a high target guy for them. They have a couple other guys over there that probably are potential pass catchers, but I think it makes the most sense for the franchise and for Davante. If he was going to go somewhere to win now, that's where he's going, to the Kansas City Chiefs. 110%. He'd be a good threat for Patrick Mahomes. He's getting a little bit older, but he's still, better than anybody they have on their roster. It's just, do they want to pay the guy what he wants to be paid? Also, along those lines, the Steelers, another good option. They're kind of in some quarterback trouble, so I think it complicates things just a bit. But a very good team, two good quarterback options in Pittsburgh. I'm not a Russ hater like a lot of the people are out there. I think him and Pickens would be a nasty, nasty duo. And then I don't think he's going to New York either. But you can get. I'm getting too deep in the weeds with this, but a lot of places where I think that he couldn't go. A lot of just a couple that I think that make a lot of sense for him. What do you think?
Earlier you were saying on the show that Aaron Rodgers can spell at a third grade level, correct?
Something like that.
And when you're spelling his current team,
Only Dave. Only when Hayabusa is consumed.
Hiawatha or Hayabuso?
I don't know. It's something like that, right? I'm not familiar. I just
You
my
don't partake.
friends
You don't
told
partake
me.
in the ayahuasca, Kyle. I I think that the clear number one option is the Jets. Jetss, Jets. And it's Aaron Rodgers could push weight around to get them to trade for him. That everybody and your mother is talking about that in the media. And I just don't think that's an interesting route to take here. Let me tell you about a team that I think that would be amazing for Devontae to be on. Probably doesn't end up
So
working
hold
out.
on. Pause for 1 second. Are you saying that you do not believe that he will go to the Jets, or he
I
will
think
go?
that it's anybody who watches this is going to hear it, and it's it's overdone. Any point that I could give just wouldn't be any. I can't add anything to this. That's everybody wants him to go to the Jets. Everybody wants him to be reunited, have that 2020 season
Sure.
again.
But we've seen 1,000 times in the media, right? There's all kinds of speculation. Where is this person going? Where is this big time player going? Every franchise is like, he's coming here. He was in talks here. He did a meeting here. Dave, where is he going? Where does he end up?
Where do I want him versus where do I think he's going to go?
No, I mean, like if it was where I wanted him, I'd still take him back in Green Bay. I love Devontae, and we watched him when he was young, right? Like we saw him in his prime. I'd love to see him and figure it out and get him in the green and gold again. It's not where I want him; it's where I think that he's going to go. Where do you think that he's going?
Dark horse candidate. I think that they could emerge late in the game. Nobody's going to see this coming, but it makes a lot of sense. What's that team again that wears purple? Not the skull ones. Who's the other ones? I believe that they're a bird, Kyle. They're mentioned in Edgar Allan Poe's amazing book, The Ravens, Kyle. The Ravens make the most sense to me. You give me Devontae Adams with the rest of their offense, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. Are you kidding me? I'm sure I'm missing more of their players. Yeah, but that offense would be amazing. And you could tell me, oh, it's not going to happen, blah blah. They signed Odell last year, so they're willing to make a big move that will be a distraction to their locker room. I don't think that the Ravens are afraid of that as long as they can get winning football. And for a second round pick, I believe that the Ravens would be more than willing to give that up. And you tell me that they get Devontae Adams, they're an instant contender in the AFC to beat the Chiefs. They already are. And then you throw Devontae over the top. Give me Devontae to the Ravens. I want Devontae Adams to be a Baltimore Raven. I just for the sake of football, just for the sake of being able to see somebody beat the Chiefs so they can come out of the AFC instead of, Patrick Mahomes and, I'm coming up. No.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice, a secondary option. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if it's an AFC team. He stays in the AFC. I think it's very unlikely that he becomes an NFC football player again. At any point in his career, to be honest with you, unless he signs some kind of short-term deal and then goes into free agency and gets paid, crazy to go somewhere else. But I think he makes a decision like that. I love the Ravens' choice. It's almost like a big three in an offense, which is kind of cool. You don't see that all the time, so it'd be cool to see that trio. I would definitely watch it. I'd be all about watching the Ravens beat up on pretty much any AFC team that they wanted to.
Must watch football.
Yeah, so it's good for the game probably too. At the end of the day, to get him somewhere else, get him in a different uniform, see him do well, or see how he progresses on another team if he does really well. Obviously, he's had a falling out with the Raiders, which is not shocking. But we'll see where he ends up. I just thought it was an interesting topic to end on, just because that's circulating hot NFL news right now. So we're over an hour, my friend.
All right, brother. Let's wrap this up. Appreciate you guys. If you watch this, thanks, Mom. Again, you made it through the whole podcast. I love you for that. If you did watch this, I love you. Thank you so much. Anthony, Jamal, Hawk, I love you as well. It's been a great time. Let's hope that we can keep on doing this. Love you guys.
Hey, Narv Dog, we'll see you soon, man. We'll see you very soon.
Dog.
We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right, buddy. Catch you later.